Hello, my name is Kathy, and today I'll be continuing the course for music theory. But before I do this, I wanted to let you know that because I have a great many videos now on many different topics, that I've decided to make several different video playlists so that it's easier to find the videos of greatest interest. So please check out my playlist page. This course breaks itself into three major parts. The first part is basic music theory. The second part is arranging music, and the third part is music composition. In this lesson, we will continue to learn about basic music theory, and in particular, more about intervals. The two notes of an interval can be made smaller in two different ways. The first way is by raising the lower note a chromatic semitone, or by lowering the upper note a chromatic semitone. This pushes the two notes of the interval a semitone closer together. When the major interval is made a semitone smaller, the exact name is changed to minor. Seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths can be major intervals or minor intervals. The minor interval is always a half step smaller than the major interval. Only major intervals may be changed to minor. Perfect intervals never become minor. Seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths can be major intervals or minor intervals. The minor interval is always a half step smaller than the major interval. Here is a little table showing the half steps or semitones for each of the major and minor intervals. Augmented and diminished intervals. If an interval is a half step larger than a perfect or a major interval, it is called an augmented interval. An interval that is a half step smaller than a perfect or a minor interval is called a diminished interval. A double sharp or double flat is sometimes needed to write an augmented or diminished interval correctly. Always remember, though, that it is the actual distance in half steps between the notes that determines the type of interval, not whether the notes are written as natural sharp or double sharp. Here are some examples of diminished and augmented intervals. You will notice that the augmented fourth and diminished fifth intervals sound the same. This is because they both have 6 half steps or semitones, or they both have 3 whole tones to them. This interval is called a tritone, and in Western music traditions, it is considered unusual, dissonant, and unstable as it tends to want to resolve itself into another interval. You have probably noticed by now that the tritone is not the only interval that can be spelled in more than one way. In fact, because of enharmonic spellings, the interval for any two pitches can be written in various ways. A major third could be written as a diminished fourth, for example, or a minor second as an augmented prime. Always classify the interval as it is written. In other words, a third is a third, a second is a second. Don't change the interval to a fourth or a third. Keep the base interval intact when classifying them. The reason the composer is using the unusual interval is because it is mostly a matter of placing notes correctly in the context of the key, the chord, and the evolving harmony. Remember that any interval can be written in a variety of ways using enharmonic spelling. Always classify the interval as it is written. To invert any interval, simply imagine that one of the notes has moved one octave so that the higher note has become the lower note and vice versa. Because inverting an interval only involves moving one note by an octave, it is still essentially the same note in the tonal system. Intervals that are inversions of each other have a very close relationship in the tonal system. All intervals can be turned upside down. This is called the inversion of intervals. Intervals can be inverted in two ways. The first is by moving the lower note up one octave, and the second is by moving the upper note down one octave. This forms a new interval, and it must now be named. To find the inversion of an interval, first name the new interval, and then subtract the name of the old interval from 9. The inversion of a perfect interval is still perfect. The inversion of a major interval becomes a minor interval, and a minor interval inversion becomes a major. The inversion of an augmented interval becomes a diminished interval, and a diminished interval becomes an augmented interval. So, to recap, perfect intervals. A perfect prime is often called a unison. It is two notes of the same pitch. A perfect octave is often simply called an octave. It is the next note with the same name. Perfect intervals, unison, fourth, fifth, and octave, are never called major or minor. To recap, augmented and diminished intervals. An augmented interval is 1/2 step larger than the perfect or major interval. A diminished interval is 1/2 step smaller than the perfect or minor interval. To recap, inversions of intervals. To find the inversion's number name, subtract the interval number name from 9. Inversions of perfect intervals are perfect. Inversions of major intervals are minor. And inversions of minor intervals are major. Inversions of augmented intervals are diminished, and inversions of diminished intervals are augmented. Now, let's do some interval exercises. In your manuscript pad, give the complete name for each interval. I will provide the answers so that you can check your work. And here are the answers. Fill in the second note of the interval given on your manuscript pad. Please note that major intervals are indicated with a capital M and minor intervals are indicated with a lowercase m. I'll provide the answers so that you can check your work. And here are the answers. And here are the answers. Here are the musical terms to memorize for this week. Presto, very fast. Prestissimo, very, very fast. Un poco adagio, slowly, but not very slowly. Cantabile, with a singing tone.
I have a great many videos now on many different topics, and so I've decided to make several different video playlists so that it's easy to find the videos of greatest interest. So please check out my playlist page. Well, that's it for now. To stay up to date with my latest videos, make sure to subscribe to this free YouTube channel by clicking the red subscribe button right below this video. Take care.